I had a gut feeling that my parents, who'd shown little interest in my business until it became profitable, were secretly planning to take control behind my back. So quietly, I transferred my shares to a trusted partner. 1 month later, their plan crashed and burned, and they learned the company was no longer theirs to steal. Subsequently, they unveiled a reorganization strategy, then were astonished to realize I no longer held authority. You've consistently shown ingratitude. This is a family enterprise. Everything belongs to us. Thank you for joining me today. I trust you are experiencing a delightful day wherever you may be. I would be pleased if you could indicate in the comments your current city or country, and the local time. Now, let us commence our narrative. I suspected my parents intended to seize control of my business, so I transferred my shares. A month later, they announced a restructuring initiative, then were shocked to discover I no longer possessed ownership. You've always been unappreciative. This is a family operation. All assets are ours. My garage was more than just a place to work. It was my sanctuary. It carried the scent of ambition and old pizza, an aroma that still offers a peculiar comfort. Here, among the tangled cables and glowing displays, I invested every bit of my youth, every waking moment, into establishing Outsmarted solutions. I was 24, freshly graduated with a computer science degree, and driven by a fervent desire to prove myself, not merely to the world, but to the two individuals whose approval I most yearned for, my parents, Martha and Richard Vance. It wasn't just a corporation. It was my effort, my dedication, and a desperate longing to demonstrate my worthiness of their affection, worthy of a place at their seemingly flawless family table. I recall those initial days with a poignant ache, the ceaseless hours blending into days, the instant noodle meals that tasted like triumph, the deep fatigue from working past dawn. I built Outsmarted from its very foundations, a testament to pure determination and countless sleepless nights. My parents, successful in their own real estate ventures, had provided me a modest loan for some preliminary server equipment, a mere $10,000, a fraction of my personal investment. Yet, to them, it was the pivotal contribution, the bedrock upon which our family enterprise would ascend. "Michael, dear," Mom would softly say, her voice like warm honey. "It's crucial to keep matters within the family. It's for our collective security." She would utter this with that smile capable of melting ice yet concealing a cunning trap. I mistook it for love. It was merely control. So, at their insistence, and driven by a profound need to honor them, to be the exemplary son, I registered Outsmarted as a family business. They assumed symbolic board roles, never setting foot in the garage, never comprehending the lines of code or the algorithms that constituted my world. Still, at every social gathering, every country club event, they would proudly declare, "Our son's company, our family business." These words echoed hollowly in my ears, a performance for their peers. Emily, my younger sister by a couple of years, appeared to navigate life with effortless ease. She was the favored child, effortlessly adored, effortlessly successful in a manner that felt superficial. She attended elite schools, drove the newest vehicles, and never seemed to exert herself. While I was relentlessly building, proving, hoping for a sliver of the affection she seemed to inherently possess, Emily was often by my parents' side, reinforcing their narratives, making me feel like an outsider. She was adept at the subtle eye roll, the dismissive sigh, the gentle push that consistently relegated me to the periphery. I loved her, of course, she was my sister. But there was always a quiet resentment, a constant sensation of striving against the current that invariably favored her. As Outsmarted expanded, the sweet aroma of success began to sour, tainted by the metallic tang of suspicion. My parents' visits changed. They ceased praising and began scrutinizing. "Are you certain this new marketing initiative is prudent, Michael?" Mom would inquire, her eyebrows slightly raised, implying my incompetence. Richard would demand financial statements, his voice strained, always contrasting my expenditures with theirs, subtly suggesting I was reckless and irresponsible. "Remember, son, this is our investment. We must safeguard our family legacy." The hum of my servers used to be a lullaby. Now it felt like a growing static in my ears, a warning. Then came the hushed conversations. I would enter the living room, and their discussion would cease abruptly, like stones dropping into a well. Their eyes would dart away, their posture feigning casualness. I repeatedly observed their car, the gleaming silver Cadillac, parked outside an unfamiliar law firm, miles from their usual attorney. The shift in their demeanor towards me became undeniable. There was a new coldness, a demanding edge to their voices, a look in their eyes that felt less like parental affection and more like an assessment of an asset. My chest tightened, a cold dread seeping into my bones. My stomach churned, a familiar knot of unease tightening with each hushed whisper I overheard, each stolen glance between them. The house where I had grown up, a place of warmth and supposed security, suddenly felt alien. Every family photo on the wall, with their smiling faces and my own somewhat rigid grin, seemed like an accusation. I knew with a gut-wrenching certainty that something was profoundly amiss. The facade was cracking, and the truth, whatever it was, felt like a lurking shadow. The initial crack in their meticulously constructed facade came, ironically, from Emily. I found her one evening slumped in a plush armchair in her apartment, a half-empty glass of red wine clutched in her hand. Her perfect hair was slightly disheveled, her usually impeccable makeup smudged beneath her eyes. She appeared, for the first time, truly vulnerable, truly human. "Mom was just here," she slurred, her voice thick with something I couldn't quite identify, anger, resentment. "She was going on about how I need to find my own path and stop depending on them, as if she hasn't enabled me my entire life." It was a rare outburst of genuine frustration from Emily, who typically maintained an air of detached superiority. I recognized my opportunity. "They've been acting strangely, Em," I began cautiously. "Secret meetings," whispering. "It feels off." She snorted, a harsh, humorless sound. "Off, Michael? They're plotting something significant." She paused, taking a long swallow of wine. "I overheard them speaking with Mr. Davies. You know, their lawyer, not the family one, the other one. They were discussing restructuring. Innovate Tech said you were too independent, ungrateful. Said they needed to regain control before you ruined it." Her words struck me like a physical blow, each syllable a shard of glass piercing my carefully constructed world. My mind reeled. Ungrateful? Ruined it? I had built Innovate Tech into a multi-million-dollar company, a feat they constantly boasted about. My vision, my effort, my sacrifices. And they viewed me as a liability, a loose cannon who needed to be restrained. "They're talking about taking over, Michael," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They think you're too big for your boots. Mom said you'd lost your way, that they need to intervene to protect their investment and secure the family legacy. She even mentioned replacing you with someone more compliant. Honestly, I think they even considered me for a moment, despite the fact I wouldn't know a server from a frying pan." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. The ground beneath me wasn't just shaking, it had opened up, revealing a chasm of deceit. I gazed at the family photo on Emily's mantelpiece, a meticulously staged Christmas picture from last year. I was there, smiling, but suddenly I felt like a stranger, an afterthought. My fingers trembled so hard the old ceramic mug I was holding clattered against the table. This was it. I had nothing left, no illusions left to cling to. My parents, the people who were supposed to be my foundation, were actively plotting my downfall. The betrayal was absolute, cold, and calculated. Every memory, every act of love, twisted into a new, sinister shape. The air in Emily's apartment felt thick, suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I barely registered her continued muttering as I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. I needed out. I needed to think. My mind raced. Fragments of conversations, subtle glances, all clicking into place. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, realizing all the signs had been there, and I had simply been too blind, too trusting, too desperate for their approval to see them. My first thought, surprisingly, wasn't anger. It was a terrifying sense of defeat. What could I do? They were my parents. They had power, connections, and the ingrained belief that they were always right. For a terrifying hour, I felt utterly paralyzed, a marionette whose strings were about to be severed. I locked myself in my own office. The familiar hum of the servers now a mocking symphony of my impending loss. I stared at the family photo on my desk, the one where I had been mentally cropped out, my fingers tracing the outline of my smiling face, a ghost of a happier, more naive time. I considered surrendering, walking away from it all. The thought was seductive, a dark velvet cloak of oblivion. But then something shifted. A cold ember of defiance flickered within me. I had built this. I had sacrificed for this. No one, not even my own parents, was going to take it from me. My despair solidified into a hard, unyielding resolve. I grabbed my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard, searching for the best corporate lawyers in the city. The next morning, I found Sarah Jenkins. Her office, with its scent of old books, fresh coffee, and the subtle tang of lemon polish, became my sanctuary. Sarah was sharp, direct, but with an underlying empathy that was a balm to my raw nerves. I recounted the entire story, the years of subtle manipulation, the recent whispers, Emily's confession. She listened intently, her steady gaze and calm demeanor a lifeline in the churning ocean of my despair. "Michael, this isn't ungratefulness," she stated, her voice firm, cutting through my self-doubt. "This is self-preservation. This is about boundaries, and they're trying to erase yours completely." Her words were like a bracing splash of cold water, waking me up. She outlined my precarious position with the current share structure. My parents, holding nominal board positions, possessed more power than I, in my trusting naivety, had ever realized. But she also offered a solution. "We need to act swiftly and discreetly," she explained, sketching diagrams on a whiteboard. "The most effective defense is a rapid, strategic offense. We can transfer a majority of your shares to a trusted third party, someone loyal to you who understands your vision for Innovate Tech." My mind immediately turned to David, my COO. David had been with me almost from the beginning, a coding genius and a fiercely loyal friend. He'd endured the ramen noodle days, the existential crises, the minor victories. He truly understood Innovate Tech because he had helped build it alongside me. The legal process was clinical, yet each signature on the transfer documents felt like a piece of my heart tearing. It was a necessary sacrifice, a brutal incision to protect the dream I had poured my life into. The silence in the office after David left, the newly signed documents tucked securely in his briefcase, was deafening, a heavy promise of what was to come. While Sarah performed her legal maneuvers, I began my own quiet investigation. I combed through old emails, uncovering veiled threats and dismissive remarks from my parents. I found records of their financial contributions, a mere drop in the ocean compared to the millions I'd invested in the company, and the years of unpaid labor. I even unearthed a few old voicemails where my mother's voice, usually so sweet, turned icy, gaslighting me about decisions I had made. It was a painful, meticulous archaeological dig into my own past, unearthing the foundations of their deception. And then I found it, the original incorporation documents. I recalled a hurried meeting years ago with a junior lawyer who'd suggested a standard safeguard clause, Section 7, subsection B, something about founders' rights in the event of a hostile takeover. I'd barely skimmed it, trusting her, trusting them. Now, as I read the precise legal language, a cold thrill ran through me. That tiny clause, buried deep within the corporate bylaws, was my silent protest against the future I always subconsciously feared. It was the whisper of a younger, more cautious me, finally heard. The invitation arrived a week later, an embossed card requesting my presence at a family meeting to discuss Innovate Tech's future expansion. The formality was jarring, a stark contrast to the casual Sunday dinners of years past. It felt less like a gathering and more like a summons. I knew what it was, the trap. The air in my parents' sprawling, immaculately decorated home felt thick with unspoken expectations, heavy with the cloying scent of Martha's expensive lilies. Every antique vase, every polished surface seemed to hum with their self-importance. Emily was already there, perched nervously on the edge of a velvet armchair. Her posture stiff, her gaze darting between me and our parents. She looked pale, her usual vibrant confidence replaced by a visible unease. Their family lawyer, Mr. Davies, a stern, impeccably dressed man whose suits always seemed a size too small for his inflated ego, sat beside them, a smug, knowing confidence etched onto his sharp features. He gave me a curt nod, a dismissive flick of his wrist. "Michael, darling," Mom began, her voice a saccharine purr that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're so proud of all you've achieved." The words felt like a condescending pat on the head to a child, not an acknowledgement of years of tireless work. "But as a family business," she paused, emphasizing family, as if it were a sacred, unassailable word. "It's time for a more structured approach." Richard leaned forward, his voice firm, laced with the paternal authority he was accustomed to. "Martha and I, with our years of experience, have decided it's best to implement a new restructuring plan to ensure Innovate-Tech's long-term prosperity." He launched into a meticulously rehearsed speech detailing how they would assume more direct control. "I would be sidelined, reduced to a figurehead, perhaps an external consultant, a thinly veiled demotion designed to strip me of all real power." He even outlined how they would take over my primary office, the one I had built from scratch, and move me to a smaller, less prominent space. Their words dripped with condescension, a patronizing gesture before they delivered the final blow. The scent of lilies suddenly felt suffocating, as if the very air in the room was conspiring against me. They concluded, their faces expectant, anticipating my meek acceptance. They believed I was ensnared, an obedient son who would yield to their will. But I just smiled, a calm, almost chilling smile that spread slowly across my face. My heart was pounding against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and fear, but my expression remained serene. I reached into my briefcase, my fingers brushing against the crisp paper of the share transfer documents, the sensation sending a jolt of power through me. I pulled them out, crisp and official, and slowly, deliberately slid them across the polished mahogany table towards Mr. Davies. "There's just one small detail you seem to have overlooked," I said, my voice quiet but resonant in the suddenly silent room. "Your restructuring plan requires a majority vote. And you no longer have it." The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. My parents' faces contorted, a grotesque display of emotions, from smugness to disbelief, then to raw, explosive fury. Richard slammed his fist on the table, making the teacups rattle violently. Martha shrieked, her carefully composed facade crumbling into a mask of pure rage. "You've always been ungrateful," she shrieked, her voice shrill and unhinged. "This is a family business. Everything belongs to us, you ungrateful serpent. How could you betray your own flesh and blood?" Mr. Davies, their lawyer, looked visibly flustered, his face paling. He stammered, "This is unexpected, Mr. Vance." Accusations rained down on me, a barrage of venomous words. "Traitor!" Richard roared, his face purple with rage. "I knew we couldn't trust you." Amidst the chaos, my eye caught Emily's. She was pale, trembling, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and dawning understanding. Her usual guarded expression was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability. Then something shifted. A flicker of resolve hardened her gaze. In a rare, courageous moment of defiance, having witnessed her parents' true colors and my quiet strength, she made a crucial intervention. Her voice, though trembling, was firm, cutting through their parents' tirade like a sharp blade. "He's right. Mom, Dad," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "You were planning this. I heard you. You called Michael expendable. You said he was just a tool." She looked directly at our mother, her eyes blazing. "You said he'd lost his way and that I might be more compliant if things went south." Her words struck their parents like a physical blow, shocking them into momentary